Western Author Spotlight podcast with our host, Frank Fiore. Frank, how are you? And I know you're excited about our guest.
Yes, very much so. I always like to talk to a Western author and get their take on how they approach their Western stories.
Yes, David Chemetsky's our guest, and David does a bunch of different things, motivational speaker, but I never knew about Western authors. So go ahead, Frank, with your first question. Go ahead,
Oh,
Frank.
oh,
Yeah.
yes, what?
Yeah. You want to ask him about certain things in Westerns. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, yes, yes. Uh, what kind of Westerns do you write? Is it just gunfighters from one end, and then you got all the way to the other end is the mountain man, and somewhere in between? What do you focus on?
Yeah, the first book that I wrote, this book called Redemption, is really takes place in the West. It's on a horse farm about it was weird because it's all women centric, and where the story is about a mom who takes over a horse rescue farm, and the real main character is the teenage girl coming of age, learning how to manage her own things, coming from teenage to adulthood to take over the responsibilities of the horse rescue farm. And then there's always a hand who helps out, and there's the relationship with the mom as well as the barn hand. And it just grew out of really. I was frustrated in my own business, and I love the gunslinger piece, and I wanted to write it, and but this is what came out. I started going on different directions as I started writing.
And that's great. I mean, definitely when you think about that. And how did that kind of, what were your thoughts? Are you a Western fan growing up? Is that why you kind of pushed it in the West, that story?
No, I was actually going through a challenge in my own life, and I sat and meditated, and I saw basically the Garden of the Gods in Colorado, and I said, I need to write a book about it. That I knew a little bit about horses from my stepdaughter, and I kept on seeing horses riding and things like that, and I ran with it from there. I've tried to do a classic Western with the gunslingers and things like that, and it turned into something completely different, which is not yet published. But this book, it just took a journey of itself.
You know,
Uh,
Frank, if that's what authors do, they take a journey themselves, don't they, Frank?
yes, they do. You go one way and you end up with it's someplace else. I'm doing a little search on you to see. I want to look at your books. Do you have a website?
I do have a website, and also on Amazon. You can check out the book. This book is called Redemption, and it's on Amazon, and it became a number one bestseller by accident. An Amazon number one bestseller. I pushed it out there on social media, and then I went away on vacation with my two girls, and I come back and I see all these notes and stuff like congratulations, and I'm looking at it. So I didn't do a hard push, but in some countries, it became number one bestseller, and eventually became a teenage number one bestseller here in the United States. And one of the greatest stories is when you have people read and give you feedback on it. I had received a call from a friend who bought it for her daughter, and they said, my daughter has some questions for you about this book. I said, okay, sure. So I sat on a Zoom call like this, and the girl started asking me all these questions. What's going to happen here? Why'd you do this? And for the future questions, I said, well, you're going to have to wait for the next book, which I hadn't really planned on writing. But now that I have all this great feedback, I'm like, okay, I need to craft, book two, the continuation of this book.
You know what we need to do, definitely, if you have questions for David, make sure you put them in the comments section. A lot of people don't go with the live, they go later to have these conversations, especially in different social media platforms. As we're finally live streaming, we're kind of going to the next final stage of podcasting. In 15 years I've been doing this now. David, I think when you think about specifically redemption, what you went through, it had to feel great that so many people enjoyed the book, right?
Yeah, that's the great thing about being an author is when you start writing and you start getting feedback. Some of this is it's heart-wrenching stuff. Some of the stories that I've written in this book and other books, and you don't know what you're doing. You put your heart into it, and you don't know how people are going to receive it. And when they receive it the way that you intended, it's a special feeling.
Yeah, that's what every author wants to know. Know that, hey, I wrote it in. The reader leaves saying, said I was entertained. I might have learned something from it, and my money was well spent. That's all you could ask for.
Yeah. And because the things I write really have a personal touch to it, and not only that I wrote it, but there's usually little pieces of truth in there, or my life, what I have experienced. So it becomes that much more. I have a neighbor who reads all my books, and she tries to figure out, where where I fit in this story. And I go, not every story has, truth in it, but it's all about, the truth in the story, but not the real life in the story.
Where do you spend most of your time? How many hours a day do you spend writing?
It depends. Every morning I spend, and I put it out onto Facebook through my meditation, at least a half hour just to make sure that I'm writing and doing something. And I put that as my posts on social media. Though when I'm writing a book, it could be just 15 minutes a day, or there's other times where I devote a lot of time to it. A lot of it's the flow. So depending on what you're writing or how you're writing, with the redemption, there were a few times that because it was a little personal to me to write the story right, correct, is it took me a little more time. I wanted to go through it, and if it triggered me in any way, I wanted to make sure that I was able to adjust to it and make sure that I put the right energy into the book about, peace and what redemption really means.
Um, got a quote from some author. He said, "Looking out the window is even is even writing. It's called writing too." And that's it. I mean, I would have to get away from the computer. I'd have to get away from to the find a place where I could just sit and think. And a lot of my writing is that I would watch television. I would watch some westerns or something like that. And then I'd get an idea, and it's, oh, that's how it is. So writing is not just in front of constantly 8 hours a day in front of a computer. It's not. There's a lot of meditation that goes on. There's a lot of thinking.
Sure.
And people, so how do you write a book? Says, well, sometimes I write a book sitting down watching television.
Yeah, no, it's when it comes to you. The story was in my head for a while, and at the time that I started putting out this specific story, I was frustrated with a lot of things. And I said, as I teach people, when you're frustrated, you got to move the energy differently. Either watch TV, take a walk, look out your window and notice, people passing by, or the trees falling from the trees falling from the leaves. It really becomes something that becomes more powerful because you take the time. And I think that's when you're writing a book, you have to take the time. All those people who say I could write a book in, 60 days, 60 minutes, or 60 seconds, you
A
can.
week.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you can 100% you can, but what's the quality? That's why when people ask me, some of the stuff, are you using AI? I'm like, no, because when I put out a book, I want to put out my heart. I want to put out the energy that I feel in the writing. And I think that's more important than just putting out words.
Because it's something that's a passion. So for example, you could go and show up and do a podcast half and not prepare, not be ready, not do different things, not have a right mic, not doing certain things. It's doing everything to your level. One point they could replace me and just have AI and have a robot and ask questions. But is that going to be real personal? And that's the thing where you have to look at AI and its process. And Frank Fiore, again, his book launch for Cyberkill is on March the 5th. And I'm going to be kind of guiding people part of that cyberkill because it's involving AI killing everyone, how to use AI in the right way and different ways for your business. That's not really taking your passion away, because when you take your passion away, forget about it. It's like saying, okay, I'm going to pay somebody to go wrestle for me. It looks like me. It's a hologram of me, but it's not really me. I'm not really getting to experience it. You're putting your effort and your soul into writing. And David, where's the best place people can connect with you and purchase your book? Where can they go?
Well, Amazon is where the books are, but reach out to me on my website, which is davidshemetsky.com. And, from there, that's where I love the connections. I always offer everybody a half hour. I do a lot of mentoring and coaching, and in a lot of different ways, in speaking, in writing books, and or having a podcast. But the real thing is getting over our limiting beliefs. And I give everybody a half hour, no charge, to kind of get to know everybody. If it's not everybody resonates with each one of us, and we all have a story that we want to get out there. Frank
All
will
right.
agree.
Yeah, we appreciate it, David. Thanks again.
All right, thanks.
All right, that's a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and Western Author Spotlight.